Hi, all. Welcome to our Facebook Live event. This is new territory for us, so we appreciate you joining us, and I hope it all goes smoothly. I'm sheltering in place here in my home in Venice, California, together with my family. Ethan, my son, is behind the camera doing a great job, so thank you, Ethan. And we're here surrounded by lots of the artwork that I've collected over the years, which is really wonderful to have that around as we spent a lot of time at home. So I'm grateful for that. And I've been thinking a lot about sort of silver linings through all of this. I'm sure a lot of you have been thinking along these lines as well. And despite us being isolated, what I'm feeling is this sort of incredible sense of community. I wasn't expecting to feel this way, but I am. I'm feeling it with my own team, who we're all scattered around the country in different places, working remotely now. And I still feel this just sense of tight group community. We're inspiring each other, we're lifting each other up. It's almost as if we're more connected now than we ever were, and that's really kind of amazing. I'm finding that with my extended family. I'm finding that with those of you that I work with, who I see a bunch of you have joined, familiar faces here, both the dealers and collectors, so I appreciate seeing you guys here. But we've spoken, many of us, recently, so I get that sense of community. And then on kind of a more global sense, I think there's a lot of that happening with people pitching in and helping. So there's a sense of this global community. I'm really happy to see that. And with so much of my life devoted to telling the story of Ted Geisel, who, as you know, is Dr. Seuss. So telling Ted's artistic story for almost over 20 years now, I've been so immersed in the messages of his work, and so much of those resonate at a time like now. And it occurs to me that if an artist's job is to help us make sense of the world around us and our own thoughts about that world around us, if that's an artist's job, then Ted Geisel is one of the most profound artists of our time. And I say that because it's one thing for an artist to put context around something that's happening in a moment in time, and we need that. But so an artist might do that for this moment, but to have an artist create work that brings understanding to the world around us for the entirety of our lives is something wholly different. And that's where I think Ted Geisel really extends beyond the reach of most artists. And I find that quite fascinating. I mean, he made work from the 1920s, 30s, all the way through his passing in 91. So that's a 70-year period of work. And that work seems to resonate today, especially today, as much, if not more, than the days when he created it. So that's really special. And that kind of brings me to his final book. His final book was Oh, the Places You'll Go. And it really was a self-portrait of sorts for Ted. It was the summation of his life. I mean, imagine this is a man who's now at the tail end of his life, looking back on all of these experiences, all of the wisdom that he gained in his life, and he wants to convey that. And he chooses to do that by writing a story about a young boy in his pajamas, running around through life's experiences in his pajamas. And there's a funny story about this. Ted, who was living on the East Coast and wanted to move to the West Coast, he ended up moving to La Jolla, California, which is actually just down the highway from where I am tonight. So he wanted to move to the West Coast, and the reason he wanted to move to the West Coast is because he wanted to live somewhere where he could live his life out walking around outside in his pajamas. Which is just one of my favorite quotes of all time from Ted. And here he is sort of doing that through this book. So it's a really brilliant sort of self-portrait of him himself. So as he's telling this story of life and all the things that this little boy is going to encounter, he infuses it with a lot of hope and optimism, but he doesn't shy away from the challenges that this boy is going to face and that we are all going to face in our lives. And I really appreciate that he doesn't shy away from that he sort of puts that in there so that we all get the sense of what life is really about. But again, he infuses it with this incredible sense of optimism, and inspiration. And I think that's really one of the hallmarks of what Ted brought to his work. There's a specific moment in the book where he sets his pajama-clad boy in this hot air balloon. And he sets him in there, and the boy is waving as the balloon is rising. And Ted writes this text that goes with this particular moment. He writes, "You'll be soaring to high heights." And it's a great inspirational message, obviously. This boy in the pajamas soaring to high heights and inspiring us to do the same in our life. But there's something even more nuanced here. And this is sort of the brilliant side of Ted's work. When you think about being in a hot air balloon, you can control the height at which you fly, but you can't necessarily control the direction in which you fly, because the wind controls that. So you sort of have to embrace the unknown. And that nuance is pretty significant. It's Ted telling us that we have to do this. We have to embrace this unknown with optimism and with joy. If we do so, we in fact will soar to high heights. And I find that to be not only profound, but just incredibly uplifting. So that kind of leads me to what we're going to unveil for you today. Many of you are familiar with Ted's concept drawings. And this is sort of that moment of creation, the artistic process in action. And I've spent 20 some odd years in and out of artist studios. It's one of my favorite things to do as part of my profession, and I feel, just so lucky to be able to do it. But I love going behind the scenes. I love being in the artist studio when he's at that moment of creation, and you see these ideas unfolding. And I get that when I visit the archive, Ted's archive, and I get to look through these original drawings, and I see all of the energy of that artistic moment. That moment of creation is right there in my hands, and it's just like the energy of it is really, really fascinating. And the idea of going behind the scenes to see where how he got to these final drawings. I mean, we're all familiar with these final pen and ink line drawings that he did for the children's books, but how did he get there? And these concept drawings are really a window into how he got to those final ideas. And for Ted, it's almost like this creative impulse is so frenetic and it's so energized that he has to get these ideas out onto the page as quickly as he possibly can before he actually loses the idea. So the sense that you get when you're looking at these drawings is like all of the energy of him moving his pencil around and coloring and just doing whatever he can for his hands to keep up with his mind. And he has this idea, and he's got to get it out in time before the idea loses its potency and loses its energy. And I think you really feel that in these drawings, and certainly in the image I'm going to show you tonight, you can feel that. And to me, that's one of the most special things about even the entire collection of the art of Dr. Seuss. There's paintings that are incredibly fantastic. There's sculptures, the taxidermy, and then there's the illustrations, the final illustrations for the children's book. But what strikes a chord for me and is special for me, and it might be because of my profession, but what's special for me is these moments of creation, going behind the scenes and seeing this impulse of the artist. And that's what we get to experience right now. So I'm gonna let Ethan unveil for you Soar to High Heights from Oh, the Places You'll Go. And as you look at the work, you can see a lot of what I was speaking of happening here in the work. You can see the energy of these lines and him getting this color down as quickly as he can. But one of the other things you see is the confidence of his line, the confidence of his drawing. I mean, if he's trying to get this down as quickly as possible, he's doing it with such confidence that he creates this composition that's absolutely stunning while he's in this sort of impulsive state. I find that really fascinating. I also find the simplicity of what he does fascinating. It's really, really challenging to get complex ideas out in a simple way. I think we all know how hard that is. When something looks simple, it typically is so difficult to get to that moment. And he just had this innate ability to convey these really, really thoughtful sentiments and these nuanced ideas in such a simple and graphic manner. But here we have this balloon soaring, the pajama-clad boy waving, and then this embracing of the unknown. The direction is sort of unknown to him, and he seems to be completely embracing that. And that's just a fantastic message that Ted left us with. So, really, really excited about this work. I think coupled with that is, thinking about simplicity in this time of the great unknown that we find ourselves in. I know many of you are disappointed that you can't visit your gallery and see this work in person and acquire it if you chose to do so, and meet with your art consultant, etc. Those opportunities don't exist for us right now. So we've tried to make this simple for you. So for those of you that are interested in acquiring this new release, we've made that a part of this special launch. We've done a special price as part of this launch, and it's also the first time we're ever making an Art of Dr. Seuss work available for purchase online. So if that makes it easier for you, fantastic. We're happy to do that. If you have questions or you'd like to speak with your art consultant about it, please do that. And if you don't have a gallery or an art consultant, you haven't worked with one before, message us and we'll get you in touch with the closest authorized gallery to where you live so that you can speak with somebody. And we're happy to answer questions for you in that regard as well. I think there's many people that knew that there was an Oh, the Places You'll Go release that was going to be happening. There was some rumblings in the market, and you were right. But we started getting questions about graduation gifts, because you may know that Oh, the Places You'll Go is one of the most widely gifted books during the graduation season. In fact, it's on the New York Times bestseller list almost every year since it was written, on the New York Times bestseller list for that graduation period. So it's also one of the most quoted books in commencement speeches. If you Google that on the internet, you're going to see many, many graduation speeches that quote Dr. Seuss, Oh, the Places You'll Go. The disappointment for many of you this year is that your commencement events aren't happening. And so I understand that the gift that you want to give this year may hold even more weight, be more significant, more important to you than it might have been otherwise, because the ceremony itself isn't existing. So you need to commemorate this with something really, really special. And if that's your desire with this piece, we'll do everything we can to make this a gift for graduation, get it to you in time. Please understand that we do have limited shipping capacity right now, but if you indicate to us that this in fact is a graduation gift, we'll do our best to expedite it for you, because we understand how special and important that is. So again, if it's something that you feel would be fantastic to have on your wall, to have these ideas a part of your life every day. I live with Dr. Seuss works on the wall of my home. For that reason, I love that my kids and I get to sort of experience the different messages and things that are in the work, and we get to see that every day. So if that's of interest to you here, please be sure to click online or to speak with your art consultant about it. But I'd like to leave you with this. Either way, I think the sort of ideas that Ted has laid out for us in this particular work and in the stories that he wrote really resonate at this moment in time. So I encourage you to spend some time with the books, if you have the books at home, with your family, and just kind of reconnect with a lot of those messages. Or if you have artwork on your wall or looking to add artwork to your wall, do so and have those ideas and messages around you, because I've found it to be really, really a great way to connect. And I had a lot of fun. I actually pulled out some of my old Dr. Seuss books that were dedicated to me from my folks, only a couple of days ago and re-looked at them, and that was a really great moment. So this is a moment of time to do that while we're all sheltering in place. And as Ted said, we will soar to high heights. We know that, and this work is an indication of that. And I know that we'll be back to soaring to high heights very, very soon. But until then, I really appreciate you joining us, and I wish you all the best to yourself and to your family. And we'll do more of these events, and we'll speak again soon. Take care. Thank you.